They say love knows no boundaries. But what happens when love dares to cross the deepest lines society has drawn? Lines of color, of wealth, of power? This is the story of Amara and Richard, a love that defied the world, only to be torn apart by it. Amara grew up on the south side of Chicago, a place where dreams often got lost between sirens, broken glass, and the heavy weight of poverty. But Amara, she was different. Her teachers always said her mind was sharp, her heart even sharper. While most people saw her neighborhood as a cage, Amara saw it as a reason to fly. She worked nights at a diner, studied during the day, and clung to books like lifelines. Books about African history, about leaders who had fought against the tide, about freedom. Those stories weren't just words to her, they were fuel. And then, there was Richard Montgomery. On the other side of the city, Richard's world couldn't have been more different. He was the heir to a billion-dollar empire. His life was silk suits, skyscrapers, private jets, and boardrooms. Every door was open to him. Every opportunity was handed to him. But for all his wealth, Richard's heart carried something money couldn't buy: loneliness. One morning, seeking peace from endless corporate demands, he wandered into the public library. That's where he saw her. Amara, sitting by the window, sunlight painting her skin gold, reading a book on African history. He didn't know her name yet, but in that moment, he knew she wasn't just another face in the crowd. He approached her, curious. He asked what she was reading. She looked up, a bit guarded, and replied, "History, the kind they don't teach in schools." Her voice was calm but firm, and as she spoke about freedom, justice, and identity, Richard felt something he hadn't felt in years: inspiration. That was the day it began. At first, their worlds clashed. Richard's friends couldn't understand why he'd spend hours in a small diner just to see her. Amara's neighbors whispered that men like him didn't stay, but neither of them cared. They walked the streets of Chicago together, laughing at things only they understood. He took her to restaurants she never dreamed of entering. She took him to jazz bars where music wrapped around their souls. For the first time, Richard wasn't Montgomery the billionaire. He was just Richard. And for the first time, Amara wasn't the girl fighting to survive. She was simply Amara. Love grew quietly between them, but society grew louder. Richard's family didn't approve. His father warned him, "A girl like her will never fit into this family. Think of the business, the legacy, the image." Amara's community too was skeptical. They told her, "He doesn't understand our struggle. He can't feel what it's like to live in your skin." But they held on to each other, against all odds, against every voice telling them to let go. They held on. And then one night, under the soft glow of city lights, Richard knelt before her. With trembling hands, he asked the question that made her heart stop. "Amara, will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes. She said yes. Their wedding was nothing short of breathtaking. A garden filled with roses, music that blended cultures, and vows whispered like promises written in the stars. For a moment, it felt like love had won. Soon after, they welcomed their first child, a boy with Amara's eyes and Richard's smile. Then came a daughter, bright and curious, the perfect blend of both worlds. Their home was filled with laughter, bedtime stories, and the chaos of children's toys scattered across marble floors. Richard would come home from meetings, loosen his tie, and fall to the ground just to play with his kids. Amara would watch, her heart full, believing maybe, just maybe, this love had conquered it all. But life is never that simple. The pressure from Richard's world never stopped. His family reminded him that his marriage was bad for business. Shareholders whispered. The media scrutinized. Tabloids called Amara names she never thought she'd hear. Amara, too, felt the weight. At high society galas, she was treated like an outsider. Conversations stopped when she entered. Smiles were polite but cold. Behind closed doors, she cried silently. Not because she wasn't strong, but because even the strongest hearts break under constant storms. Richard tried to protect her, but he was trapped between two worlds. He fought his family, defended his wife, but every battle left scars. Slowly, arguments began to creep in. She felt he wasn't doing enough. He felt helpless against forces bigger than both of them. One night after a long fight, silence filled their home. Amara whispered words that shattered him. Maybe love isn't enough. Separation came quietly. No screaming, no hatred, just the painful realization that the world had succeeded in tearing them apart. Richard moved into a penthouse across the city. Amara stayed with the children. Nights became colder. Their children asked questions they struggled to answer. Yet even in separation, love lingered. Richard still showed up for birthdays, sneaking extra gifts into his children's hands. Amara still kept the ring he gave her, tucked away in a box she couldn't bear to open. They loved each other, but love had been beaten by something far greater, a world that wasn't ready for them. Years passed. Amara raised their children with grace, teaching them strength, teaching them history. She made sure they knew both sides of who they were, the fire of Africa in their blood, and the privileges of wealth in their name. Richard, though distant, never stopped supporting them. He watched proudly from the shadows as his son excelled in sports, as his daughter spoke boldly in debates. He was always there, not as the husband he once was, but as the father he refused not to be. And sometimes late at night, when the city was quiet, Richard found himself driving past the home he once shared with Amara. Lights glowing in the window, laughter spilling out, a life he once had and lost. This is not a story of failure. It's a story of love that dared to exist where it wasn't wanted. Amara and Richard may not have lived the fairy tale, but in their children, their love lives on. Two souls from different worlds prove that love is possible, even if the world tries to silence it. Because sometimes love doesn't need forever. Sometimes love just needs to be real. If this story touched your heart, don't just let it end here. Hit that subscribe button, tap like, and share it with the world. Because every voice matters, and your support helps us bring more powerful stories to life.